Today we're talking to Michael Bentley, Research and Response Director at Lookout.
Thank you for having me.
Lookout is a very innovative vendor when it comes to the mobile security sector, and they have more than 100 million users all over the world protecting their devices with Lookout. My first question to you is, can you give us some examples on mobile attacks or cybersecurity threats in the past?
Absolutely. Specific to Germany, there are four main ones that we're seeing right now. One of them is Mspy. This is the one that you've seen in the news recently due to an exposed compromise. Mspy is surveillanceware, and what surveillanceware is it's an application that's typically installed by a third party on someone's phone and they don't know it. They will advertise this as employee monitoring or spousal monitoring so that you can track where people are via GPS on the phone, record the audio on the phone, copy off the text messages, basically have full access to the device. These vendors advertise these applications for both Android and non-jailbroken iPhones. And that's currently a huge threat just due to the amount of data that's available. Another threat that we're seeing in Germany right now is a piece of malware called Mad Congregant. This is a Trojan similar to Loki, which you probably saw recently in the news, where it's ransomware. It'll pretend to be a media player. You think that you're getting something useful on your phone, but what's really going to happen is it's going to lock your device. It's going to show you an alert that says it's law enforcement, and it's going to tell you that you need to pay between 100 and 500 euros via a money pack card to a third party that you're never going to see. Best case scenario, you end up with financial loss via having to pay. Worst case scenario, you end up with financial loss and a phone that you don't actually recover. Third threat that we're seeing are third-party app stores such as vShare. These are app stores that are available for iOS, specifically non-jailbroken phones, that use enterprise certificates so that you can install apps without going through the Apple Store, and you don't have the scrutiny of the Apple Store. These stores are typically pushing pirated apps or even apps that don't exist in mobile, which is interesting. For example, they'll have games such as Star Wars, which is not even a game on mobile, yet it's available there. And one of the things that we've learned from third-party stores that are pushing these pirated apps on the Android side is that it's a major delivery source for malware.
So that's very hard to the user and also to the companies.
Absolutely. There's really no remediation method that's effective or efficient in that case. The best case there for the device is you actually have to replace it. The worst case is we're seeing where these pieces of malware are pushing other pieces of malware onto the phone, such as Mad Congregant, and it just ends up becoming a chain effect where the total device is just compromised.
Are the traditional security managers aware of these threats? Do they know about that, or how do they handle it?
I don't think that they were really prepared for how popular mobile was going to be and all the access that was given. When first mobile, came out into the enterprise environment, I think CIOs were a bit scared, and their first option was to say, block it. They saw all these threats that were in the news. They had devices that they had really no effective control over, and it didn't really have a positive impact. These are still consumers bringing their devices into the enterprise. They're still logging into the email. They still have access to it because they're using the same credentials they would on, say, a PC. Really, the best option for CIOs is to find a way to enable your users to have access to these productivity tools without blocking them, because it's going to happen one way or another. You effectively have consumer devices that are being brought into the enterprise. And if you can't find a way to enable them, you're just not going to have a good chance there.
So my impression is that many companies use EMM and MDM solutions for managing their mobile devices. What role is Lookout playing in this game?
So mobile device management solutions are very necessary for the enterprise. You need them to configure security policies, you need them to help you push applications, and they're very functional at that. But what they lack is the advanced security capabilities of applications like Lookout provides. You need to be able to have that deep inspection to really understand what is going on in the device. And we actually work very well with those MDM providers. We want to use them so that they can help us deploy the app efficiently so that we're not causing more burden. We want to have a good user experience there. We want to make sure that we can work with the MDM's quarantine policies so that there's not also burden just on the user, but on the IT as well. So it's a very good thing that MDM exists. But if you look at what MDM is saying, top MDM providers are coming out and say that our users still need an advanced mobile threat product to protect our users from these threats.
Michael, what are the differences when it comes to attacks on mobile devices and when it comes to attacks on the traditional PCs or the endpoints?
One of the big differences between mobile and PC is that we've almost entirely removed the barrier to entry to get apps onto a mobile device. You don't have to go to a specific website anymore. You don't have to look around. Everything's really provided for you. And there's almost an implied trust there, which is very interesting, and that's been different from the PC side. On top of that, we have users who effectively have excellent surveillance-aware tools on their phone, and that the phone itself is a surveillance tool. It has great camera on it, audio, very powerful processors, and it's entirely mobile, which means you have access to that user around the clock, which is something that didn't really exist in the PC. And in the process of that, we've also incentivized these users to take risks. If you have the option between paying a very large fee to get online, maybe when you're on the road, $15 a megabyte, versus connecting to any available public hotspot, you're probably going to take that risk. If you have the option between going to a third-party market where that game or that app you want is free versus getting it through a paid store, you might go through the free route and start bringing in malware inadvertently and not know about it. And in addition to that, we've seen almost an entire change in the user bases using mobile phones. We have an entire generation of users that is used to granting very broad permissions for applications because they provide a very useful product to them. Despite these applications coming from first-tier markets where there's been millions of downloads of malicious applications.
Michael, what developments do you expect when it comes to the mobile security sector in the future?
I think the big increases that we're going to see is going to come from things like brain test and sheet on that are rooting the phone. The reason why is it's working. They have a fantastic monetization model where they're making tons and tons of money, and there's no reason for them to change it. They have every incentive to expand there and to try and get into more first-tier stores. Next, I think we're going to see things like vShare are going to expand rapidly. With enterprise certificates being available on all kinds of markets for purchase, we're going to see users pushing those risks and installing those third-party stores and bringing in those apps. And then third, I think that we're going to start seeing a lot more opportunistic attacks against the app providers themselves. When you have all these wonderful productivity apps that are in these curated stores, we still don't know how well these companies are secured. We don't know if some of these companies are malicious or not. And when you see things like Mspy happening where they were compromised and all that data was lost, there's no reason why that can't happen to what is expected to be a good company. And it's not because they're bad, but maybe there's an inadvertent risk that they didn't realize.
Michael, thank you for your time today, and thank you for joining us for this interview.
Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed it.